It's been enduring in this Japanese culture, this kind of movie, the giant monsters that even endures to this day. And it's had this lasting power and somehow has never really managed to take hold in the West. And so Guillermo's desire to do a big high production value version of that kind of film had a lot of appeal to me. It was also a rarity these days, something that's, well, it has these production paintings that we saw at his art department. And I loved how bold and over the top a lot of this imagery was, and it just seemed like, oh, this would be a tremendous amount of fun. All right, so we decided as part of this, to feel out the relationship with Guillermo, that we do a little test, a little five or six shot sequence to see what working with Guillermo was like, to kind of work out some of the speed and scale issues that kind of immediately posed themselves as one of the big challenges of the movie. So, living in San Francisco, figured we'd set it in San Francisco, and came up with a brief little vignette that involved one monster and one robot fighting in San Francisco. I had my art director, the appropriately named Alex Yeager, draw up of this sequence. And since we were shooting in San Francisco, he very clever actually. He did all his scouting at using Google Street View, and the storyboards he drew up, he grabbed frames from Google Street View so that we could work out all the compositions. This is a little just dissolved storyboard version of the test. Monster steps into the foreground. See the robot in the reflection. Robot comes, tackles the monster, smashes him into a building. Arm gets bitten off, rocket punch. Monster smashes the building. Okay, so based on that, then I just, very guerrilla style, I took a Canon 5D into San Francisco one evening and just shot all the backgrounds for that with my daughter, who was home from film school for the summer. And then a group of about a dozen or so of us put this test together. Oh no! All right, so this is what that looked like from camera. So the whole point of the shot is that the fist makes its way all the way to the end and bumps this desk. So as cool as it was for the first part of it, that's not really going to work for us. So we didn't really have a whole lot of choice other than to figure out some way of doing a second take. So we had some of the cubicles that were just in the background. We moved those to the foreground, and we kind of reconstructed what we could to get a second take out of it. And this was our second take. You can see the ceiling still is already damaged. Now we're talking. So. That one worked much better. Let me show you what that looked like from camera. So much better, but we still had the problem of what are we going to do with the ceiling? I did a little test on set to convince myself that I could actually patch the ceiling from the first take. So this little breakdown shows you how a lot of those pieces went together. And the desk was shot full scale as a separate piece. And of course it was stereo, so this film was done in stereo, so all of this had to be done matched right and left eyes. Okay, now unfortunately at the very end of the shot, you can't quite make it out, which was too bad. But up on the upper right-hand corner, you can see a little chart up there, which ended up being too far out of focus to really read. That's this. This is a chart that I kept in my office during the production. I do these on every show. It's the schedule running along the horizontal axis and the number of shots that we're doing on the vertical axis. The orange dots were the projected burn rate that our visual effects producer had put together back at the beginning of the show, where she wanted us to be when. The top there was our deadline, so total number of shots at the deadline. And the blue line down here was what we're actually doing. This shoot we did mid-December of last year, so we were at about 330 finals out of 1,600, and we were about 800. So we have this shot of the monster kind of bursting through an office building and bashing a gypsy into the building on the far side. So what goes into a shot like that? Well, it starts off same way, rough layout. Then this is what we get from the animation department. All right, and then from here now we have a lot of work to do on simulations. So typically our simulations start at a bit lower resolution, just with kind of roughed-in block shapes to get the basic form. And then those are used to drive a finer resolution sim with a lot more small pieces. You can still see there are a lot of very crude and simple shapes in here. So then once we're happy with this animation, then more detailed fractured pieces get instanced onto those simpler shapes. So you see now there are fragments with rebar sticking out of them and a lot more detail. And then it goes off to be rendered. So this is a miscellaneous debris pass. And some debris from the other side. And this is shattering glass. And dust. You can see these are some of our debris and dust and glass bits all together so you can see how they're working. Dust from the monster crashing through the building. Dust trailing off of the monster from passing through the building. Dust from the debris that's thrown forward from the monster crashing through the building. See, this is the dust from the robot hitting the building on the other side. And the dust dragging along from the robot smashing into the building. Somehow we always managed to hit a gas line, so there's an explosion. And of course, you don't want the building on the other side to be jealous of the explosions that we have around here. So we break through a big neon sign, so this is some of the electric arcing and sparks from smashing that neon sign. This is the interactive light from all of that destruction of the neon sign. And this is glass fragmentation sound. There's a render of that glass bursting out of the building. More small glass fragments. And more glass fragments from the other side. And since this is an office building, there's a few thousand reams of paper that get liberated by the impacts. And of course, it's raining, so we have the water streaming off of Gypsy and the monster. And Guillermo really liked this, we call the raging bull effect. From whenever we punched one of the monsters, we get this slobber that went flying. All right, building interiors. Fragmenting debris from that building. These are reflections on the glass. Interactive light from the Gypsy spotlight. And the reflection of the interactive onto Gypsy from an overhead helicopter light. Gypsy's base illumination from the environment. Gypsy's internal lights, the lights mounted on her shining onto herself. The light from the overhead helicopter. Interactive lights from the neon signs that are on either side. And from the right, there's this one's from the left. Similar passes for the monster, base illumination. Interactive light from the overhead helicopter spot. Interactive light from the big red neon sign on the right. Volumetric lights on the buildings. More volumetric lights on the buildings on the other side. And volumetric lights from Gypsy herself. I want to do a whole movie that just looks like this. Volumetric light from the overhead spot. This is now we're getting into the environment work. So this is the far distant layer of the environment. And volumetric lights in the far distance. And from our environments group, this is all the buildings in the background that none of the characters directly interact with. And then this is how all the pieces then go together. And again, as overwhelming as that might be, that actually just represents about a third of the elements that are actually being pushed up. Okay. Now let me go over another shot. This is a little bit more typical. That one was one of the more on the more complex end. This is more typical of the